Welcome to Mandukya Upanishad study and discussion. This Upanishad explains the meaning and significance of Om and as a path to self-realization. In this session, we will go through verse 8, which starts to explain Omkara Vichara, the Om meditation. In the next slide has references used for this presentation, and they are for learning purpose only. In some slides, the reference materials are presented as it is to present the meaning also as it is. So the next slide, the choices of question for discussion. 1. Why is the sound of Om central to so many spiritual practices? 2. What is your experience of chanting, meditating on Om? 3. How does what you heard today change your perspective and daily practice? Now we'll go through the summary. Verse 1 says, Omkara, Om is everything. Everything in the macrocosm, microcosm, and beyond. Everything in the past, present, and future, whether they are inert objects or sentient living beings. The life force behind the macrocosm and the microcosm is Brahman, the ultimate reality, is also Omkara. Then verse 2 says, Brahman is too vast a concept for us to grasp. So the Upanishad says, the Atman is miniature of the vast Brahman. Also, microcosm, the human, is miniature of the macrocosm, the cosmos. Then it describes Om as a symbol of Atman, Brahman. Verse 3 to 7 explains the meaning of Om symbol in 4 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and Turiya. Each of these states represents the Atman at the individual level and Brahman at the cosmic level. Turiya is the superconscious state which encompasses all 3 states, and Turiya is the experience of oneness, beyond duality, desire, and it is pure bliss. Verse 8 to 12 explains Om syllables and says they are the sound manifestation of Atman, Brahman. It also explains Omkara Vichara through the Om meditation, which leads to purification, one-pointed focus of the mind, and to self-realization. Now, this slide shows the summary of Atma Vichara. The illustration explains in the Om, the bottom curve represents Akara, the waking state, with a conscious mind and a physical body with Atman. The other side curve, Ukara, is the dream state with an active unconscious mind in a subtle body with Atman. The top curve, Mankara, deep sleep state with the latent unconscious mind in causal body with Atman. The crescent represents Maya, the illusion which separates the material self from true self. The dot, the Bindu, represents the Turiya, the silence, superconscious state, Atman, Brahman by itself. Now, from verse 8 on, it is Omkara Vichara and meditation, and Ranjani will add and take us there.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you.
So what we've done in this particular session is we will focus only on one verse, Omkara, and we'll talk about the spiritual practices associated with Om. Okay, so this verse 8, let's get right into it. Saha ayam atma adhyaksharam omkarah adhimatram padamatrah cha matras cha pada akara ukara makara iti. It just states what we have been talking about all this time. Saha is that, I am this, Atma is the Atman, Adhi is in regards to it, akshara is the syllable. So adhyaksharam is in regards to the syllable om. Omkara is it again, it just talks about the syllable om. Adhi, again in regards matra. So when you come to matra, it's now talks about the constituent phonemes. And adhimatram, in regards to these constituent phonemes, it has padas or quarters. And each pada has its own matra. And what are these four quarters? Akara, which is the phoneme. Ukara, the next phoneme. Makara, the third phoneme. So the meaning of this verse is that same Atman or self, when considered from the standpoint of the total syllable, is Om, the fourth quarter. But from the standpoint of the letters or the component phonemes, the first three quarters of the letters or the letters of the first three quarters. Those are the A, U, and Ma. So what does this verse say? It says Om in its entirety represents the Atman. From the standpoint of the total syllable, Atman is represented as Om. Om, the three legs of Om are the Akara, Ukara, and the Makara. It also represents the four states of consciousness. That is what this verse says. So let's go through a brief commentary on it. So now, we talked about the syllable Om. The next few verses talk about the Shabda or the verbal, the sound of Om. As a whole, syllable by syllable, these are known as matras. What's a matra? Matra is a specific duration for chanting of each syllable. So there is a particular technique. 4 techniques of chanting Om, 1 for each quarter or padas. So what are the 4? A, U, Ma, Om. And as you chant, there is a growth in consciousness moving forward in our evolution from the gross level towards the subtler levels until we reach illumination in the 4th quarter, Turiya. The rishis use this method to train the wandering mind to one-pointed purification of the mind to reach the ideal of enlightenment or self-realization, says Swami Guru Bhaktananda. What does A represent? As Val took us to the previous slide, it's the gross world. The first 2 chakras operate in relation to the physical world. And what does it address? Feelings of safety, security, the survival aspect. So this is the psychological component of the gross world associated with the Akara. Ukara is the dream world. 2 states of dreaming, active dreaming, deep sleep. The 3rd and 4th chakras are located at the navel and the heart centers, and they involve a subtler relationship with the world, working with one's individuality rather than just engaging in the physical world, right? So, we've talked about what's involved in dreams, right? So what's involved in the dream state is impressions that you've gained during the day, interacting with the vasanas, and then in very deep sleep, it is your unconscious. It is the latent vasanas and the samskaras. M is the deep sleep state. The 5th and the 6th chakras, the throat and the eyebrow centers. It starts to take the movement away from the outer inner world towards the inner world of purity, intuition, creativity, and wisdom from which the outer arises. So Akara is the gross world, Ukara is the active dream world, Makara is the deep sleep world, and Turiya is the silence or the ultimate consciousness, the 7th chakra. Just want to take a minute to draw your attention to the table on the right. We're starting to see the connection between how the sound of A, U, Ma, and Om affect all the chakras. Now, you know that there are 7 chakras. Every chakra has a mantra or a sound associated with it to activate that chakra. If you look on the chart, the 6th chakra, which we will talk about much more in detail, the mantra for the mind is Om. So for every chakra, the Mooladhara, the element is the earth, the mantra is Lam, the Karmendriya, what does it do? The function of elimination, and the Jnanendriya is the smell. 2, the second chakra, water, the mantra is Vam, and the Karmendriyas, procreating, Jnanendriya is tasting. The third chakra, Swadhisthana, fire, Ram, Karmendriya is movement, the Jnanendriya is seeing. 4, the element associated with the fourth chakra is air, Yam. The Karmendriya is grasping or holding, and the Jnanendriya is touching. 5 is space, hum, speaking and hearing. 6, manas, manah. The mantra is Om. The functions of the mind is the Karmendriya. The Jnanendriya is also the functions of the mind. 7th, the Turiya. The element is just consciousness. The mantra is the silence, the Turiya. So this is just a chart. It's a very, very brief introduction to how sounds are used to activate different chakras and how Om. We'll talk a little bit more about the significance of Om. So we added this one slide to show that Om is so pervasive in the Upanishads, in the Yoga Sutras, in the Bhagavad Gita. Every text deals with Om. So for those of you who were part of our Yoga Sutra sessions, you may remember in the first chapter, verses 25 to 29, those shlokas, this is a summary. It's the first time the word Ishvara is mentioned. In Ishvara, the cosmic consciousness, the seed of omniscience is at an unsurpassable level. Not being limited by time, Ishvara is even the master of the ancients. His word is Pranava. The continuous repetition of Pranava or Om with the meditation on its meaning is the means to attain Samadhi. By this Om chanting, Samadhi is reached and obstacles are cleared too. The obstacles of Samadhi or towards Samadhi are the results of the distractions of the mind. Remember the vrittis caused by disease, dullness, doubt, negligence, sloth or laziness, overindulgence, imagination, inability to reach the milestones, and instability. So you might remember this from the Yoga Sutra, where Om is considered the pranava, and that is the primordial sound, the sound of the creation of the universe. And it says that is Ishvara. From the Kathopanishad, verse in the first 1 to 15 to 17, remember Yama says, that goal which all the Vedas declare, which all the disciplines proclaim, desiring which people live the religious life, I shall describe it by a single word, Om. This syllable is verily the individual self. This syllable indeed is the highest self. Knowing this very syllable, whatever anyone desires will indeed be his. This means is the best of all. This means is the highest. Knowing this means one revels in the blissful realm of the Supreme. Again, Kathopanishad establishes the primacy of Om as the ultimate knowledge and practice. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, shloka 13, says, one who departs from the body while remembering me, the Supreme Personality, and chanting the syllable Om will attain the supreme goal. And then in chapter 9, verse 17, Krishna says, amongst vibrations, I am the symbol Om. So again and again, you see this theme where Atman, Brahman, Ishvara, Krishna, whatever you may call that supreme, it is Om. Om is correlated as the syllable that encompasses this divinity. It is the ultimate. So what we thought we would do is we will continue and focus the rest of the session on the significance of Om in our spiritual practices. Because as you saw, so many of our scriptures talk about Om. So we picked two main ones, the Raja Yoga, the Yoga Darshana, based in Vedanta and the meditation on Om, and then Kundalini Yoga, how it integrates mantra japa to awaken the chakras. So this is a verse that Ashokan found and sent it to us. If you wondered when we were reading when we read verse 8, it talks about a particular cadence or a particular way of saying Om. This one from the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, translated by Swami Satyadharma Saraswati, I'll just read it out. It tells you exactly what those intonations are, or what is that cadence. Pushpa madhye yata gandaha, payo madhye yata ghritam, tila madhye yata tailam, pashaneshviva kanchanam, hridi sthane sthitham padmam, tasya vakram adhomukham, urdhvanala madhopindus, tasya madhye sthitham manaha, akare rechitam, padmam ukare neva bhidyate, makare labhate nadam, artha matra tu nischala. As the fragrance, so this talks about the lotus in the heart and what Om does to that lotus. As the fragrance within the flower, as the ghee within the milk, as the oil within the same, as the gold within the rock, so is the lotus placed in the area of the heart. Its face is bent down. Its stalk is upright. Its bindu is below. Within it abides manas. The lotus is expanded with the sound a. With the sound u, it is opened up. By the sound m, it obtains sound. And the half syllable is still. So remember when we talked about matra, the a matra is a full a. U matra is the whole phoneme, whereas ma is only half. We say om. We don't say ma. It is, the ma is the half matra. Where is the other half? The other half is a turiya, the silence. So such a beautiful and appropriate verse that Ashokanji found to help us understand what verse 8 implies when it talks about these matras or these phonemes, which are the components of the syllable Om. Val, would you like to take us through the effects of Om chanting on our physiology?
Yes, sure, Raji. Thank you. So here the yoga practice Om chanting, the effects on our physiology. So this explains how the breath, the prana, running through the nerve currents, the energy channels, influence the body. So Om is pranayama. It is a yogic practice of controlled breathing. A and U becomes O, so we chant Om. When we chant Om, we take a deep breath, inhale, and chant Om sound while breathing out slowly, exhaling. In essence, Om chanting is a deep breathing pattern. Blowing air out, the exhalation, stimulates the parasympathetic nerve system, the vagus nerve, which parallels with the Ida Nadi and releases neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, governs the relaxation response and removes stress and enables us to relax, digest nutrients, express ourselves, heal, and recover from trauma. Taking a deep breath in, inhaling, is linked to the sympathetic nervous system. It parallels with the Pingala Nadi, releases norepinephrine, which controls the fight or flight response. But the goal is balancing both. Now, with the Kundalini practice, the Kundalini yoga and pranayama. So here we are talking about the nadis. Nadis are pranic energy nerve currents. Here the illustration on the right, the three main nadis, Ida nadi, the moon channel, parallels with the parasympathetic, and the Pingala, the sun nadi, that's the red one, parallels with the sympathetic. The Sushumna, the central, then the pranic energy flows through these channels. Prana is not just breath, but it also carries vital information. Here, the prana and the apana play the main role through these nadis. These three main energy channels or nadis traverse and transcend the spinal column around the energy centers, the chakras. Prana, here the pranava, the Om, flowing in Sushumna is one of the critical processes of the inner journey. The picture on the right, the Utkit Pranayama, is the Om chanting pranayama. With the practice of pranayama, the flow of prana through the Ida and Pingala is first balanced by Kumbhaka, breath retention, and Rechaka, the breath suspension, which cause the energy of the Kundalini to rise in the Sushumna, creating the ability to transcend consciousness and progress to Samadhi. This process is the most essential preparation for meditation and Kundalini awakening. It also gives abiding peace of mind by removing the blocks in the chakras. The sadhaka, the practitioner, begins to experience fearlessness and eventually peace and bliss. So, as we learned in verse 6, Ishvara establishes the connection through the Sushumna channel, permeating the causal body of the individual, creating the connection between the individual body and cosmic body for maintaining the continuity of life. Now, the mantra japa, the Om. Now, here the power of Om on the chakras, the illustration on the right, the chakras are the energy centers in the body corresponding to specific glands and bundles of nerves. When the chakras are balanced, the life energy flows through, connecting you to the world around you and also upwards to higher realms of conscious intelligence. There are 7 main chakras from the base of the spine to top of the head. The Ajna chakra is the spiritual eye or third eye chakra, the 6th chakra in the body. The seed mantra for this chakra is Om, the sound of cosmos, and also all other sounds originate from this mantra. Ajna chakra is located in the center of the forehead between the eyebrows. That's where we put the bindi, identifying the third eye. It is the direct connection to the Brahman, ultimate reality. The illustration on the right, the bottom one, Ajna chakra, is described as the diamond-like lotus of 2 petals. The letter Ham on the left petal represents Shiva, while the letter Sham on the right petal represents Shakti. The triangle along with the lotus flower represents wisdom. It is part of the pranic system where Ida, Pingala, Sushumna meet. It is the chakra of intuition, self-realization, inspiration, and imagination. The energy of this chakra allows us to see and understand the inner and outer worlds. It is associated with the pineal gland, situated deep in the brain, which secretes melatonin that regulates the body's internal clock, influencing circadian rhythms. An imbalanced Ajna chakra can cause unwillingness to look within and face fears, etc. The mudra for this chakra is Chin mudra, which is the index finger and thumb touching, indicating the individual consciousness and connection with the cosmic consciousness. As we learned, the bija mantra for this meditation is for this chakra is Om. With this, I will hand over to Ranjan.
Thank you, Val. So as you've seen, we've got 2 different symbols that come together in the same place, right? One is about awakening chakras and the energy, leading to the super consciousness. The other one is through the symbolism of Om. So what's the symbol of the Kundalini? It's the coiled serpent. The Kundalini Upanishad uses the imagery of the coiled serpent to symbolize the dormant spiritual energy at the base of the spine. This energy, when awakened, rises through the body, crossing the chakras, and ultimately leads to self-realization and unity with the divine. The Mandukya Upanishad uses the syllable Om to represent the totality of the universe, encompassing all states of being and consciousness. Om is not merely a sound, but a representation of the whole of reality, from the waking state to the transcendental state of Turiya. So what are the parallels? Both symbols, Om and the Kundalini serpent, serve as metaphysical representations of the potential for spiritual awakening and the journey towards realizing one's true nature. In both texts, there is a progression from the limited, waking, dreaming, deep sleep or the base chakras to the boundless Turiya or the Sahasrara, and the energy, whether conceptualized as Om or Kundalini, plays a central role in the spiritual transformation. Many thanks to Ashokan for this beautiful summary of how Om and the Kundalini yoga come together. The Agya Chakra, the mantra, the Bija mantra is Om, and then transcending to complete silence. So as always, we thought we'd end with a story. We've talked about Om in our spiritual practices. Now let's look at Om in our legends. So this is the story of Swaminatha, a story of Kartikeya from the Skanda Purana. It's also there in the Shiva Purana and many other places. But I picked the one from the Skanda Purana. Interestingly enough, I was reading the story to my grandson just 2 days ago, and it felt so timely, divine intervention, that we read that particular story when we were going to be talking about this verse. So Shiva asked his son Kartikeya to go to Brahma and study under him. Kartikeya asked Brahma to teach him about Om. Brahma asked him to start with the alphabet first before aspiring to this ultimate knowledge. Now, this is a little boy, right? He's just a child. Kartikeya returned in a huff to Shiva, saying Brahma couldn't even teach him about Om. Shiva said, "What do you know about Om that you're asking to be taught that as the first lesson?" Kartikeya said he could tell him, provided Shiva accepted him as a guru. This is a little boy. Smiling, Shiva agreed and lifted him onto his lap. Some stories say he lifted him onto his shoulder. You might have seen those idols, signifying that he was placing him on a higher seat than the one he was seated on, an honor reserved for a guru. Kartikeya revealed to Shiva that Om is the pranava, the primordial sound, which contains the entire universe within itself. It is the highest spiritual realization. Listening to this, Parvati was overjoyed and said, "You are Swaminatha." Swami to her Natha, Guru to her husband. And this is the legend associated with Swami Malay in Tamil Nadu, one of the 6 Arupadai Veda. So for those of you who worship Kartikeya, you will know about the significance of the 6 stalas, or 6 places in Tamil Nadu which are dedicated to Muruga, or Swaminatha, Kartikeya. He's supposed to have come down to earth in those 6 places. Okay, so we'll stop with that story. Back to the questions we set out at the beginning. Again, these are just a starting point for discussion. Just think about what stood out to you in everything we've talked to. But why is the sound of Om central to so many spiritual practices, right? Whether it's yoga based on Sankhya philosophy, or it's a Yoga Darshana, in Vedanta, in Tantra, in Kundalini. Why is Om central to so many spiritual practices? What is your experience of chanting or meditating on Om? And finally, based on what you heard today, how does that change your perspective and daily practice? With that, let me stop the recording and open it up to conversation.